The backlash continues following yesterday's heated argument in the Oval Office between President Zelensky and President Trump. We now have Elon Musk as the head of Doge investigating the funding of Ukraine and all the money and equipment sent to President Zelensky. And of course, we're going to give you guys the latest update on what's happening tonight with Zelensky, as he is currently in London and he's just had a meeting with Prime Minister Keir Starmer and also Rachel Reeves. Why was Rachel Reeves involved? We're going to tell you all about that. Welcome back to 2CTV, your global news channel. Okay, so it's all kicking off again. Since yesterday, the whole debate got divided and there's been a lot of reaction from world leaders. Starmer decided not to say anything, and instead, obviously, he hosted Zelensky because clearly Zelensky said, I'm going to come to London now, and he said, okay, fine, come to London. But there's been a massive silence from certain people, including Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton. All these guys have been out, and George W. Bush. They've been very quiet. They haven't actually said anything. Everybody expected them to come out to attack President Trump, but they didn't. There's so many reasons for that. But now we have this investigation that's been launched into the finances when it comes to the support from the US to Ukraine. And everything goes back to what happened last night. And actually before last night, because all these issues were already building up anyway. Now, having said that, one thing to focus on is about the actual money itself and everything else. So we already knew before yesterday's meeting in the Oval Office that President Zelensky came out to say the money received by Ukraine is not a loan. Now, there have been so many instances where the Biden administration gave money without clarifying what it is. But there have been other instances that it was quite clear that it was supposed to be a loan. But President Zelensky says it's not a loan. It was just a grant. The money is ours. So despite receiving $183 billion in US aid, Zelensky refused to acknowledge any debt to America, insisting the money was a grant, not a loan. Now, we have some details and evidence of the money, which we're going to give you guys in this video, and we're going to explain what Elon Musk is now up to. The aid was approved by Congress, as you guys know, with no repayment plan, no clear conditions, and minimal oversight on how the funds were spent. So obviously, when you have the situation where the US side under Joe Biden did not clarify what the money was exactly, even though they still call it a loan, but they didn't actually create a repayment plan. So if I were Zelensky, I would do the same thing, saying, well, there's grant because there's no repayment plan. But the document said otherwise. Now, when Trump pushed for a minerals deal as a partial repayment, Zelensky rejected the idea, leading to that heated Oval Office confrontation when eventually, obviously, Zelensky left. And obviously, Trump said, come back when you're ready for peace. Now, the reaction to this is that there's been a lot of questions about the overall funding, not just in terms of is it a grant or is it a loan, but in terms of where the money went. And actually, you can go back to President Zelensky himself, because Zelensky himself has admitted to something absolutely crucial, that all the money that was sent, not all of it, was actually received by the Ukrainian government. We don't know where the money went. And even Zelensky said that. But Josh Hawley came out to actually respond, saying that, remember, the US Senate has repeatedly and for years voted billions of taxpayers' dollars to Ukraine with no strings attached and with no true oversight. It's time for some accountability. And following this, Elon Musk responded 100%. And obviously then Elon Musk said, well, we are now looking into the whole thing, not just in terms of the conversation between the grant or a loan, but in regards to the accountability, where the money actually went. So first things first, December 2024, $20 billion extraordinary revenue acceleration loan. This was supposed to be a loan. This was part of the G7's $50 billion loan package that was finalized in October. This was backed by profits from frozen Russian sovereign assets, administered through the World Bank's facilitation and resources to obviously invest in the strengthening Ukraine's finance fund. Repayment structure is to come from the extraordinary revenues of immobilized Russian assets again, but they called it a loan. We also had, as of September 2024, $7.8 billion in economic support loans, again loans, reported by the US government via the Ukraine oversight.gov, that this figure reflects loans provided as part of economic assistance within the broader $183 billion aid package. Now, everything went about the number and the overall. So not all of it was a loan and not all of it was a grant. We know that. But why is it that we're now getting a black and white sort of situation? There has to be some sort of conversation about this. Now, President Zelensky himself recently did an interview actually saying of the $177 billion, he only received 75 billion. Only 75. Where is the rest of the money? Let's go to President Zelensky.
Організації. Дивіться, я як президент воюючої країни вам говорю, ми отримали більше 75. Тобто 100 мільярдів з цих 177 або 200, говорять навіть деякі люди, ми ніколи не отримували. І це важливо. Бо ми говоримо про конкретні речі, бо ми отримали це не грошима, а зброєю. Ми зброю отримали на 70.
So he's saying even that 70 billion that he received, first we don't know where the rest of the money is. It was, even the 17 billion, it was still not all in cash. It was obviously in weapons and training and everything else that was promised. So there has to be an investigation to what happened with the rest of the money anyway. There's a lot of theories already, as you guys know, on the internet, but there has to be a proper oversight. Now, when it comes to Elon Musk and his role, there are so many things. So he's already achieved using Doge as the department. And it's only been, by the way, a few weeks. It's not even that long. These are huge achievements. Savings of $55 billion already. This is according to the official website of Doge, which obviously they launched it on the 12th of February, saying that total estimated savings of $55 billion by the 24th of February 2025. This includes a $12.7 billion from cancelled contracts and leases, and also an additional $43 billion attributed to a fraud detection, workforce reductions, and regulatory savings and everything else. So this was in terms of the savings. But in terms of cancellation of $420 million in unnecessary contracts. They cancelled all these contracts, deemed them wasteful. They were likely tied to DEI initiatives or redundant services. This was within the first 8 days of Doge's operation. The figure, by the way, grew to over $1 billion now in cancelled contracts by the end of January. So that's already gone up. Now, access to and influence over federal payment systems. This was the biggest achievement as well. Obviously, Doge gained limited the read-only access to the Treasury Department's payment systems. This was the beginning of February, though obviously there was a lot of court cases around this issue, but they have managed to get more access. These are the achievements that they're making within days and weeks. It's absolutely impressive. So this is the level of investigation that Elon Musk is now operating. And recently, when I was speaking to the World Government Summit meeting, the World Government Summit on the 13th of February, he actually mentioned that Doge as a department is not just helping the American taxpayers, it's actually helping the world, because America has been going around intervening in other countries, removing dictators, installing other dictators, giving money to one side, the opposition, prop up the other ones, causing a lot of chaos. And actually, we're going to let countries run their own countries. And this is what he said.
I think some of the things we're doing also will be hopefully helpful to other countries, because with the new administration, there's less interest in interfering with the affairs of other countries. The times the United States has been kind of pushy in international affairs, which may resonate with a number of members of the audience. And I think we should, in general, leave other countries to their own business. And basically, America should mind its own business, rather than push for regime change all over the place.
It's true. It's true. It's not been working out for the past few decades. And it's time to actually make a difference. Now, going back to all the other announcements, for example, on behalf of Doge and Elon Musk, they posted this. Yesterday, agencies cancelled 128 contracts for about $60 million savings. Total terminations of wasteful contracts has now surpassed 3,000. Only the last few weeks since Doge obviously started this. This included a $3.5 million consulting contract for larval fish monitoring. Obviously, then you had these massive things as a list as well. Now, especially when it comes to health, the global health, because it's not really about US health. The departments in the US is not really just spending money on US health, it's international. $10.9 million cancelled grants. So 1.7 million was for the China health and retirement. Why are we sending money to China? It's just completely insane. This was obviously the university in Beijing, Peking University in Beijing, $135,000 for a research grant to China Medical University in Shenyang, $142,000 for using telehealth to improve access to gender-affirming care. We have things about gender-diverse young adults and weird things about gender identity and sources of minority stress and alcohol consumption. Many things about racialized sexual discrimination. I don't understand why, but all this stuff have now been cancelled. This is the level of investigation that you're doing. How long will it take? How many days or weeks will it take for things to come out in regards to the money that was supposed to be sent to Ukraine, but it's now missing? Even Zelensky admitted, saying, we don't know where the money is. What happened to it? And even the money that went, is there any oversight? Firstly, as I said, there has to be a clarification in terms of loan and grant. Which is a loan, which is a grant. Apparently, according to the Ukrainian government, is all a grant. Shouldn't be. And also in regards to how the money is being spent and how the equipment and everything else and the training. Meanwhile, tonight in Westminster, London, Keir Starmer has been hosting Zelensky following his unsuccessful trip to the White House. Zelensky is now in the UK. He just left Downing Street. He had a meeting in number 10 with the Prime Minister. Then they went to next door to number 11 to meet with Rachel Reeves, Chancellor. Then we had heard this announcement. Zelensky was wearing the exact same outfit as yesterday. I hope he's washed it. I don't know if he showered or not. But the United Kingdom government, under Rachel Reeves as Chancellor, now confirmed, the UK have granted £2.2 billion to Ukraine. Just now, on top of everything else, right? This is obviously supposed to be a gesture of goodwill. And we do have the short clip of the moment Rachel Reeves made the announcement.
Minister Marchenko, thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to sign the UK-Ukrainian Extraordinary Revenue Acceleration Loan Agreement worth £2.26 billion as part of our unwavering and ongoing support for the Ukrainian people as part of the G7 loan agreement.
So this was the tactic by Starmer. Last night, he didn't join the European leaders to publicly attack Trump. So, because he wants to keep Trump close. There's a lot of stuff between the UK and the US, including the upcoming trade deal, potential trade deal and everything else, right? And the Chagos Island stuff. Then he didn't want to completely be alienated by the European side because he's also negotiating with the European Union to get the UK back in the EU. So he thought, okay, I'm not going to attack Trump last night, but today, by doing this, he's keeping the EU happy. So perhaps for his own benefit, for his own interest, actually, Starmer is being clever. Not for our sake, but for his own sake and his own government. It's quite a clever move. It makes sense. Now, it comes at a cost, but it kind of makes sense for them. It's probably not the best strategy long term, but we are where we are. But we have to wait to see what Doge and Elon Musk discover in regards to this investigation. I'm sure even Zelensky himself would love to know where the rest of the $100 billion went exactly. How can it just disappear? That's a problem. So let's just get some reaction from you guys. There's a vet. Thank you very much for your super chat saying someone needs to investigate Ukraine's finances. That's what they're doing. I mean, you mean the overall finances? Yeah, because Zelensky doesn't seem like a penny pincher to me. He knows where that money went. But there's one thing about the internal budget and finances, which is not the job of any foreign government. It's the job of the Ukrainians to do. And Zelensky's government already admitted there's been a lot of corruption internally. But the investigation from foreign money, external money from the EU, G7, US, that can be investigated by the foreign side because it's their money. Cameron says he needs investigating. He bought a 30 million mansion, I think it was in Florida, profiting from the war, and has his exit plan. Must be nice to be corrupt. Well, he's already again said recently that even today that he's willing to leave. He's willing to resign if there is going to be a guarantee that basically Ukraine will be safeguarded. I think he's talking about NATO. Zelensky said his government didn't receive it, but we should look into his bank accounts and his friends' accounts as well. Patrick says, not a single British pound should be spent on Ukraine's defense until France takes back every single illegal migrant. Call it the art of the deal. But that's the interesting thing. So yesterday, following the fallout in the Oval Office, there was also a big announcement by Trump on the same day in terms of selling arms and support for Israel. And the reason that he did that, he announced the latest, what's the latest one? Yeah, so this is the $3 billion arms and equipment sales to Israel. $3 billion. So the relationship between the US and Israel is completely the opposite. So instead of giving just money to Israel, so if, for example, the US has done any financial aid to Israel, they always get something in return anyway in terms of technology and science and everything else. But the $3 billion yesterday's announcement with Israel is actually Israel paying America. Most of the time, America just sells things to Israel. In this case, obviously, equipment. We got $2 billion in bombs, $675 million in weapons and guidance kits and everything else, and $295 million in bulldozers. All this was announced because Trump knows his relationship with Netanyahu is based on business, and that not only he's not losing anything, Trump is actually gaining more money from Israel. That's $3 billion instantly. So that's why he announced that, to send the message to the whole world saying, this is how we do business. If you're doing business with us, if you know exactly what you're getting, and we know what we're getting, then we're fine. And the US have done previously also loans to Israel, and vice versa. I mean, there's been so many other agreements, and they got the money back. That's the thing. And the US should not give any foreign aid to Israel as well. I always said, dependency doesn't really work. I support Israel, but don't give foreign aid to Israel either. Just sell to them whatever you have, and if they have something, they can sell to you. Trade. Cynthia says, don't underestimate what kickbacks the Democrats got from these loans to Ukraine. That's why Zelensky's campaigned for Kamala, thought with her in the White House, it would be business as usual. Millions flowing to him, and it was a bad tactic. I mean, whatever you think of Zelensky, by the way, if you criticize, for example, Zelensky or Trump or whoever, you're just talking about them as people and as leaders. If you criticize Zelensky, doesn't mean you hate Ukrainian people, normal Ukrainian people. Some people think like if you criticize Zelensky, is supposed to be like a saint or an angel, then that means you hate all Ukrainian random innocent civilians. That makes no sense. No politician or political leader is an angel, and nobody is immune from criticism, whether it's Trump or Netanyahu or Zelensky or Starmer. And if you criticize Starmer, it doesn't mean you hate British people. If you criticize Netanyahu, it doesn't mean you hate Israelis. It doesn't work that way. But apparently it does. If you criticize Zelensky, that means you hate Ukrainian civilians, like grandmothers and grandfathers and children. It makes no sense. But that was a bad tactic when Zelensky campaigned for Kamala in Pennsylvania. At that point of the campaign, it was quite clear that Trump was going to win. Why would you gamble that? It didn't really work. Aaron says the rumor has it that Zelensky was on the nose candle at the time. Rogue Trooper says that Zelensky will use the Father Ted defense in that the money is only resting in his account. And Stu says send all the illegals to bulk Ukraine's army. It's not a bad idea, right? That's a radical solution. Counterspice says, I love Counterspice instead of Ice Spice. The mainstream media hate peace because Trump suggested it. Yeah, anything that Trump suggests, they would go against it. Remember when Trump announced the actual vaccine, the beginning of the vaccine thing? They said, we're not going to take the vaccine because it's a Trump's vaccine. The moment Trump left, they kept pushing the vaccine. So many woke lefties are supporting war now. If Zelensky wants war, why is he not fighting? He can get effed. Yeah, I mean, the political spectrum has gone so volatile that sometimes people on this side and that side, they would end up supporting something just to be against the other one. So like a lot of the lefties who used to be basically anti-war, it's gone the other way around. And the other side as well. Sometimes the political right also do the same thing. They end up supporting something or opposing it because the other side do it. This happens all the time. This is not something the EU should fear. They have the money, they just need to spend it. They don't though. I mean, if hypothetically, let's just say there is a direct conflict between the EU and Russia, because, I mean, if you get to that point, which it won't, but let's just say, I mean, it could. Obviously, Russia will not be completely alone. They would get support from Iran and China. China won't directly fully get involved, but they will still send support. Let's not forget, the EU still needs America. The Americans are still the most successful and largest military and economic power. America could buy the EU. Like, it's not even, and the American army could take over the EU with no difficulty. And the Europeans don't get this. And what are the reasons? And actually, I see it from Macron's perspective. That mini president, he keeps pushing for the EU army. And they have the EU Defense Union to have the EU army. Because he knows that he says we can't be dependent on America. But that's not why he's doing it. He wants the EU to be the next US. It won't be. For obvious reasons, the EU cannot become like the United States of America. Number one, you still have different nations, different tribes and cultures. They're very different to each other. They still hate each other. Like the Greeks and the Germans are still fighting. It's been like 12 years now. Having said that, there's a massive problem with the EU because it's in the continent of Europe, and Europe is falling apart because of mass migration, the increased size of government and lack of freedoms, and corruption and multiculturalism. How can you have a United States of Europe when even individual countries in Europe who are supposed to be becoming states in the United States of Europe, they can't even control themselves? So this idea that Macron wants the United States of Europe to basically rival America, that's just stupid. America is America. You can't do anything about it, at least not for now. It's going to take decades. And anybody, because again, someday, one day, eventually, somebody else will replace the superpower. And by the way, it's not going to be China, because they're imploding as well. It's not going to be the EU. If the time comes, when the time comes, that the US will either fall apart, and we're talking about probably hundreds of years from now, or devolve into a different type of country. Maybe the US could go back to what it was supposed to be 200 years ago, which was a isolationist country. Just say, we're America, we're not going to get involved with any other country, we're not going to be the world police. Then that moment, somebody has to replace the US as the world police. That's the nature of the planet, whether you like it or not. It's not going to be the EU. I mean, the EU will try. then you're going to have more difficulties, because then China will want to do it as well, and the others will want to do it as well. Obviously, in the name of BRICS. Without America's help, Europe is effed. And then they're going around alienating America like idiots. Why would you do that? Claire says, I'm afraid the EU is a total mess, too radical, and becoming a third world collection of countries. I think that's basically the best way of saying it. Claire's right. Third world collection of countries. By the way, this is not an insult to all the European countries, because you still have nice countries, even in the EU, like Poland and Hungary. So it doesn't apply. And actually, I still have a soft spot for Denmark. They tend to be on the right track, despite still difficulties. At least they're not Sweden. Now, let's double check, because we just received we are gonna get more updates shortly about the Doge and their operation, where we will wait to see if it will come within the next few minutes. This is obviously Elon Musk's department, which is basically investigating all the inefficiencies and waste, which is a bit of a mess. So as we said, we confirmed that Chancellor of the UK, Rachel Reeves, has now signed the £2.2 billion deal, the package, financial package to Ukraine. They will also be using the frozen Russian assets as part of the repayment. Now, CC says, cannot imagine the state of the world economy and geopolitics had Kamala won. America has dodged a very large woke bullet. The Americans, as peoples, they are not stupid. So they in close, very sensitive decision-making process situations, they make the right decision. And I always still tend to say the same about the British culture. The problem is the British culture is no longer, slowly but surely, the British culture, because demographic is changing and culture is changing. But I'm talking about the actual natives and the normal British people. They tend to always make the right decision, overall election results, if they come out to vote. The last election doesn't count because they all stayed at home. And 20% of the country proactively voted for Keir Starmer's Labour Party. So they boycotted the election, and Keir Starmer is Prime Minister, and now they're complaining. So, super chat from Israel. Are the majority a rare mineral in areas occupied by Russia? Not necessarily the majority, but a big chunk, yeah. Did Zelensky was dragging the US to the war? I don't know what his strategy is, Zelensky. I think it's difficult to tell in terms of this plan for the end destination, which is basically some sort of deal. I think it's to not come across as him making compromises when it comes to Putin himself, because there's a massive personal row between those two as well. It's not just about Ukraine and Russia. Most of what's going on is not really just about Russia and the West, it's Putin and the West. There's a lot of complicated parts of with relationships that the Westerners have, including the Clinton family and Putin, and all sides have gone cuckoo. And nobody wants to be rational, from the Kremlin side to the American side. Well, not the current administration, but the Democrats. Because the EU is going to have civil wars within 2 decades. This is exactly what some of the experts have been saying in terms of the next big conflict. It's not necessarily going to be like traditional conflicts, like World War III. It's not going to be traditional, like Chinese tanks crossing borders or their planes or whatever. Any major third world, by definition, world war will be internally in multiple countries at the same time because of Trojan horse issue. We have a lot of people now in European countries and in Canada and in Australia and New Zealand that will rise up, that could rise up, and then some of the natives will rise up to defend, and then there will be a massive chaos. And the thing is, we're not supposed to talk about it. You're not supposed to complain because they say you are stirring the pot. But it's already, the danger is there. And it might not even take 2 decades. That's the issue. It could be any moment, not necessarily any moment, but it could be sooner than you think. Because there is going to be a backlash. with all this mass migration and multiculturalism, definitely some nations will start first. And again, I could expect it from the Danish side will start massively. The Italian side will also start. Even relatively speaking, the French side and the Germans, and then eventually the Brits. And once you have that situation where everything is going to be happening at the same time in all these countries, it's technically a civil war, but not in the sense that we've had previously. It's a civil war between still foreigners and natives. Certain foreigners who don't want to integrate and they want to change your culture. And then there will be others who are also going to get involved. The troublemakers, the anarchists and the communists and everybody else. Are our countries ready for that? Because they seem to say that the intelligence services are on top of it. They're on top of the threats from the far right, as they call it. But they also admit there's a threat from Islamism. But can they see the boiling point? It's going to implode. And if you just go around demonizing local normal natives for being angry, you're not addressing the real problem. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is the latest news update from the United States. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.